Ruthless CEO body-shamed his wife nursing twins for younger mistress. Her revenge made him beg for mercy. Cover yourself before she arrives. The words cut through the morning silence like a blade. Valentina Rodriguez Sinclair stood frozen before her bathroom mirror, silk robe barely concealing the stretch marks that told the story of bringing twins into this world just 6 months ago. "Damon, we need to discuss the nursery expansion," she whispered, her Italian accent thick with vulnerability. "Looking like that?" Her billionaire husband's laugh was cruel, calculated. "Bianca doesn't need to see you in this condition. She's coming to finalize charity details, and I need her focused on business, not distracted by your current situation." But what Valentina heard next, hidden at the top of their marble staircase, would change everything. "She's looking rough, Damon," came Bianca's voice from below. "All that baby weight and those stretch marks. You can't be seen with her at the foundation gala. Think of your image." "I know," Damon replied, relief evident in his tone. "She used to be stunning when I married her. But now she's exactly what you warned me about. Some women are meant to be wives and mothers. Others are meant to be partners. I chose wrong." Have you ever loved someone who made you feel ashamed of your own body? Someone who turned your greatest sacrifice into your deepest shame? This is the story of a woman whose husband's cruelty nearly destroyed her. A tech billionaire who thought he could discard the mother of his children like a broken business deal. But what he didn't know was that he was about to face a woman who would rise from his ashes stronger than he ever imagined. What she did next would make him beg for mercy in ways that would shock everyone who knew them. Because sometimes, the most dangerous person in the room is the one you've underestimated. If you've ever felt undervalued or made to feel less than you are, this story is for you. Hit that like button, because you're about to witness a transformation that will leave you believing in the power of knowing your worth. The marble bathroom of their Malibu estate had witnessed countless mornings, but none as devastating as this one. The morning light streaming through crystal windows cast harsh shadows across stretch marks that mapped Valentina's stomach like silver rivers, telling the story of twin lives fought for and won. Damon Sinclair, tech billionaire and master of cold calculation, stood adjusting his Brioni tie with the same precision he used to destroy competitors. His reflection was perfection personified. Every dark hair in place, every line of his custom suit immaculate, every feature arranged in the expression of controlled disgust she'd grown to know intimately. The doorbell's melodic chime echoed through the mansion's halls below. Damon straightened, checking his reflection one final time. His eyes met Valentina's in the glass for just a moment. Cold, empty, holding nothing of the fire that once burned there. "That'll be Bianca. Stay upstairs until we're finished. Damon, please. The twins need their father present. We're a family. We're a business arrangement that got complicated," he said, his voice devoid of warmth. "Stay out of sight." Valentina watched him leave, his Italian leather shoes clicking against marble floors like gunshots marking the distance growing between them. She heard Bianca's laughter floating up from the foyer moments later. Bright, musical, untouched by the weight of creating life. Creeping to the top of the stairs, Valentina pressed herself against the cool marble banister. She knew she shouldn't listen, knew it would only deepen her pain, but she couldn't stop herself. "She's looking rough, Damon," Bianca's voice drifted upward like smoke. "I saw her at the farmer's market last week. All that baby weight and those stretch marks showing through her dress. You can't be seen with her at the foundation gala. Think of your image." Valentina's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a gasp that threatened to escape. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she pressed deeper into the shadows. "I know," Damon replied, his voice heavy with something that sounded like relief. "Remember what we discussed about women who let themselves go after marriage? Who use pregnancy as an excuse to abandon their responsibilities?" The words hit Valentina like bullets. She remembered those conversations differently. Back then, Damon had called pregnancy the ultimate act of love, had traced her growing belly with reverent fingers, had whispered promises about growing old together. She used to be stunning, Damon continued, and Valentina could hear him moving around downstairs. When I married her, she was perfection. But now she's exactly what you warned me about, Bianca finished smoothly. Some women are meant to be wives and mothers, Damon. Others are meant to be partners. You chose wrong. Valentina sank to her knees at the top of the stairs, her silk robe pooling around her like spilled wine. Down the hall, Sophia and Gabriel were napping, oblivious to the conversation reshaping their future. Her babies, who'd fought so hard to enter this world, who'd changed her body but filled her heart beyond measure. I miss what we had before, Damon's voice grew softer, more intimate. The way you understand my world, my ambitions. Valentina is so focused on those babies now. She's forgotten she has a husband. She hasn't forgotten, Bianca's voice carried that particular tone of authority she used in board meetings. She just wasn't built for your lifestyle. Look at your colleagues' wives. Miranda Phillips maintains her figure with 3 children. Jennifer Cross runs marathons while managing charity boards. They understand that being a CEO's wife requires more than producing heirs. Valentina pressed her face against the marble floor, remembering when she'd been one of those women. Before pregnancy, she'd run 5 miles every dawn, attended every corporate function flawlessly, managed Damon's empire with military precision. She'd been the perfect accessory to his success, the ideal complement to his ambition. But pregnancy had been different than expected. Months of bed rest when complications threatened the twins' lives. Emergency surgery when Sophia and Gabriel came early, fighting for breath. A recovery complicated by postpartum depression that Damon dismissed as hormonal drama she should overcome through willpower. She needs to understand her position, Bianca continued. Either she gets herself together, or you make room for someone who can be the partner you deserve. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Valentina's blood turned to ice water in her veins. She crawled backward across the marble floor, away from the stairs, and locked herself in their bathroom. Her reflection stared back. Tears streaming down a face marked by months of sleepless nights and constant criticism. But as she looked closer, something shifted. The woman in the mirror wasn't broken. She was a mother who'd nearly died bringing life into the world. She was a wife who'd sacrificed everything for love, only to discover that love had conditions she'd never agreed to. Her phone rang. Lucia's name flashed across the screen. "Hermana, you sound different in your texts lately. What's wrong?" The words poured out like water from a broken dam. Months of body shaming, the constant comparisons, the growing distance, the overheard conversation, the cruel observations about her postpartum body. Valentina, Lucia's voice was soft with understanding, warm with unconditional love. Listen to me. You grew 2 human beings inside your body. You nearly died bringing them into this world. Your body is proof of a miracle, not evidence of failure. But Damon says I've let myself go. That I'm not the woman he married anymore. Damon is a fool, Lucia interrupted fiercely. And cruel men don't become kind when you lose weight, Hermana. They find new ways to make you feel small. That night, after feeding Sophia and Gabriel and putting them to bed, Valentina sat in the nursery's rocking chair and made a decision that would change everything. She opened her laptop and began researching, but not diet plans or personal trainers. Divorce attorneys Los Angeles. Custody law California. Hidden assets investigation. Emotional abuse documentation. By dawn, Valentina Rodriguez Sinclair had the contact information for the most feared family law attorney on the West Coast. Isabella Romano, a woman whose reputation for destroying unfaithful husbands was legendary. As the sun painted the Pacific in shades of gold and crimson, Valentina looked at her reflection in the laptop screen. For the first time in months, the woman staring back didn't seem defeated. She seemed ready for war. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back. Back to when Valentina Rodriguez was a different woman entirely. Back to when love felt like a fairy tale instead of a prison sentence. 2 years earlier, Valentina had stood in the ballroom of the Beverly Hills Hotel, her champagne flute catching the chandelier light, working the room with practiced grace. Her emerald Valentino gown hugged curves that would soon carry new life, her smile radiant as she charmed investors and their wives with equal skill. "You're absolutely glowing tonight," Miranda Phillips had whispered, passing near the silent auction tables. "That dress is perfection on you." Valentina had smiled, touching the diamond necklace Damon had given her for their first anniversary. Back then, his gifts came with whispered promises of forever, not silent expectations of perfection. "Damon chose it," she'd replied, catching sight of her husband across the crowded space. He was deep in conversation with potential investors, but his eyes found hers and the smile he gave her was pure adoration. The look of a man who couldn't believe his luck. That was before. Before pregnancy changed everything. Before Bianca Monroe arrived with her business degree and unchanged body and her ability to make Damon remember the man he'd been before responsibilities weighed him down. Valentina had met Damon at a tech conference in San Francisco. Fresh from completing her MBA at Stanford, she was building her own consulting firm. He was expanding his AI empire globally. Their first conversation lasted 6 hours in a hotel bar that closed around them while they discussed dreams, ambitions, and the empire they could build together. "I don't want just a wife," Damon had told her on their third date, his fingers tracing patterns on her hand across the candlelit table. "I want a partner. Someone who understands that building something extraordinary requires everything you have." Valentina had understood. She'd matched his ambition with her own, his drive with hers. When he worked 18-hour days, she worked alongside him. When he traveled for acquisitions, she managed their social obligations, maintaining relationships that kept his empire growing. Their wedding had been Los Angeles Society's event of the year. 500 guests at the Chateau Marmont. Valentina's dress custom designed in Milan. Flowers flown in from 4 countries. Vogue called it a merger of hearts and minds. For 3 beautiful years, they built their Malibu empire together, choosing every marble countertop and crystal chandelier. They'd traveled the world, mixing business with pleasure, creating memories in 5-star hotels and private jets. Valentina had voluntarily set aside her own consulting firm to become Damon's full-time partner in building their life. She'd been exceptional at it. Valentina could coordinate a 14-course dinner for 20 while simultaneously managing Damon's schedule and organizing board meetings. She could charm difficult clients while keeping track of merger deadlines and acquisition targets. "I don't know how you do it," Jennifer Cross had marveled at one of their monthly charity luncheons. "You make being the perfect CEO wife look effortless." Valentina had laughed, not mentioning the color-coded calendars, the detailed spreadsheets, the meticulous planning that went into making their life appear seamless. She'd loved the challenge, loved being Damon's secret weapon, loved how he'd squeeze her hand during difficult negotiations as if drawing strength from her presence. The pregnancy announcement had been a celebration. Damon had swept her into his arms in their marble kitchen when she'd shown him the positive test, spinning her around while she laughed and cried simultaneously. "We're going to be parents," he'd whispered against her hair. "Mia cara, we're going to have a family." They'd planned immediately. The nursery in soft whites and golds, gender-neutral because they wanted to be surprised. The best doctors, the finest hospital, a birth plan that read like a luxury resort experience. The complications started in the 2nd trimester. Gestational diabetes requiring constant monitoring. High blood pressure that landed her on bed rest. The discovery at 24 weeks that she was carrying twins, explaining why she'd been so sick, so exhausted, so much larger than other pregnant women. Twins, Damon had breathed when Dr. Harrison delivered the news. "Valentina, we're having twins." His excitement had been genuine then. When Valentina was confined to bed rest at 28 weeks, Damon hired the best help money could buy. When she developed preeclampsia requiring emergency monitoring, he'd slept in the hospital chair beside her. "I can't lose you," he'd whispered during one terrifying night when her blood pressure spiked dangerously. "Valentina, you and these babies are my entire world." Sophia and Gabriel had arrived 6 weeks early via emergency cesarean when Valentina's condition became life-threatening. She'd barely been conscious for their birth, fighting for her own life while her children fought for theirs in the NICU. Damon had held her hand through it all, tears streaming down his face as he'd whispered prayers in languages she'd never heard him speak. "You did it," he'd said when she'd finally held Sophia and Gabriel 3 days later. "Amore mio, look what you created. You brought them into the world." For those first weeks, Damon had been everything Valentina needed. Gentle with her healing body, patient with her fears, understanding when hormones left her crying over commercials and baby clothes. He'd hired a night nurse, had flowers delivered daily, told her repeatedly how proud he was of her strength. But somewhere in those early months, something shifted. The night nurse was dismissed when expenses needed cutting. The flowers stopped when Damon decided they were frivolous. The gentle understanding was replaced by impatience when Valentina's body didn't bounce back as quickly as other women seemed to manage. Miranda Phillips was back in her pre-pregnancy jeans 6 weeks after having little Thomas, Damon had mentioned when the twins were 2 months old. She posted workout videos on Instagram yesterday. Valentina had looked down at her still swollen stomach, at the nursing clothes she needed to accommodate her changing body. Miranda didn't have twins, and she had an easier pregnancy. "I'm just saying," Damon had replied, but his tone suggested he was saying much more. The comments started small. Observations about other women's post-baby bodies. Suggestions about trainers and nutritionists. Casual mentions of wives who'd bounced back faster than Valentina was managing. "I found an excellent trainer," Damon had said when the twins were 4 months old. Jennifer Cross swears by him. Specializes in post-pregnancy fitness. "I'm still breastfeeding," Valentina had reminded him. Dr. Harrison said to wait until weaning for intensive exercise. Right, Damon had agreed, but his eyes lingered on her fuller curves, her stretch marks, the evidence of what her body had accomplished. It was around that time that Bianca Monroe contacted him. Damon's former Stanford classmate, now a successful consultant with connections in markets they'd been trying to penetrate for years. She'd reached out about potential partnerships, and Damon had been eager to reconnect. "Bianca is brilliant," Damon had told Valentina after their first meeting. "She has insights into emerging markets that could revolutionize our expansion strategy." Valentina had been supportive initially. Business was business. But as meetings with Bianca became more frequent, as Damon's enthusiasm for their projects grew more animated, as his comparisons between Valentina and other women became more pointed, she'd begun to see the pattern. Comment below if you've ever noticed the moment when someone's love started feeling conditional. When support turned into criticism disguised as concern. The charity gala had been the breaking point. Los Angeles' annual Children's Hospital benefit, an event Valentina had helped organize for 3 years. She'd been looking forward to it, seeing it as a chance to reclaim some of her old confidence. "What are you planning to wear?" Damon had asked a week before the event. Valentina had shown him the gown she'd chosen. A midnight blue creation that flattered her nursing body while making her feel elegant. Damon had frowned. "That dress makes you look heavier than you are. Maybe something in black." Black is more slimming. She'd bought a different dress, a restrictive black one that compressed her figure and hid the evidence of motherhood. She'd felt uncomfortable all evening, unable to eat because the dress was so tight. "Valentina looks exhausted," she'd overheard Miranda Phillips whisper near the ladies' room. "Motherhood really is taking its toll." The final humiliation came during the auction. Valentina had been bidding on a spa retreat package. Something she desperately needed after months of sleepless nights and criticism. Damon had placed his hand on her arm. "We don't need to waste money on that." Several people had turned to look, including Bianca, who'd been standing nearby with her own paddle raised. "I'll take it," Bianca had said smoothly, her bid winning the package Valentina had wanted. Sometimes we all need a little pampering. In that moment, surrounded by Los Angeles society, Valentina realized she'd become someone she didn't recognize. Not Damon's partner, not his equal, not even his respected wife. She'd become his embarrassment. But here's what Damon didn't know. Here's what he couldn't see past his own cruelty and arrogance. The woman he was systematically destroying was about to become the most dangerous opponent he'd ever faced. The meeting with Isabella Romano took place in Century City, in an office that radiated power and success. Isabella was younger than Valentina had expected, with sharp eyes and the kind of presence that made opposing attorneys nervous. "I've researched your husband's business empire," Isabella said as Valentina settled into the chair across from her mahogany desk, Sophia and Gabriel sleeping peacefully in their carriers. "This won't be simple. Men with his resources fight dirty when they sense control slipping." "I don't care how dirty he fights," Valentina replied, steel entering her voice. "I'm not the same woman I was 6 months ago. Tell me everything." For the next hour, Valentina detailed months of accumulated cruelty. The constant criticism of her postpartum body. The exclusion from business functions. The way Damon made her feel like a liability instead of a partner. She played recordings she'd started making weeks earlier. Hours of cruel comments, controlling behavior, systematic emotional abuse. Isabella listened to several clips, her expression growing darker with each exchange. "This is excellent evidence. California courts increasingly recognize emotional abuse, and these recordings establish clear patterns of psychological cruelty. What about Sophia and Gabriel? Given your role as primary caregiver and this evidence of emotional abuse, full custody is very achievable. California prioritizes children's best interests, and children need stability and love, not criticism and control. What do I do next? Document everything. If you can safely access financial records, we'll need those too. And Valentina, prepare for war. Once he's served, Damon will do everything possible to maintain control." "I've been preparing my whole life," Valentina said quietly. "I just forgot for a while." Over the following weeks, Valentina began her strategic preparation with the efficiency she'd once brought to managing Damon's corporate empire. She photographed financial documents during his late nights with Bianca, using her intimate knowledge of his systems to gather bank statements, investment portfolios, partnership agreements. She also reached out to Carmen, their longtime housekeeper who'd witnessed months of Damon's cruelty. "Senora Valentina," Carmen said when approached privately, "I see how he treats you. It's not right. You're a good woman, a good mother. If it comes to it, would you testify about what you've seen?" Carmen nodded firmly. "Por supuesto. Those babies need their mama, and you deserve better." But Valentina's most powerful discovery came from an unexpected source. Marcus, their part-time security coordinator, approached her one afternoon with information that made her blood freeze. "Mrs. Sinclair, I need to tell you something," Marcus said, his voice hushed as the twins napped. "Mr. Sinclair asked me to install monitoring software on your devices. Said it was for family security, but you don't think that's true?" Marcus shook his head. "My ex-wife went through a divorce. Her husband tried similar things. This feels the same." Valentina's hands clenched. Damon wasn't just planning to humiliate her. He was preparing to destroy her completely. "Marcus, would you testify that he asked you to spy on me?" "Yes, ma'am. What he's doing isn't right. You're a wonderful mother." That evening, sitting in Sophia and Gabriel's nursery while they slept, Valentina made a call that would change everything. "Isabella? It's Valentina. Damon is building a surveillance case against me. We need to act immediately. I'll have papers prepared by tomorrow. Once we file, there's no turning back." "Are you certain?" Valentina looked around the nursery she'd decorated with such hope, at her children who'd changed her life in ways Damon would never understand. I've never been more certain of anything. The next morning, while Damon was at his office celebrating a successful merger with Bianca, Valentina did something she hadn't done in months. She looked at herself in their bathroom mirror and smiled. Not the fake smile she'd perfected for public appearances, but a real smile that came from deep within. The woman looking back wasn't defeated anymore. She was a mother preparing to fight for her children's future and her own dignity. She was someone who'd finally remembered that love shouldn't require disappearing. Tomorrow, Damon would receive divorce papers that would shatter his carefully constructed world. Tomorrow, her new life would begin. But tonight, Valentina Rodriguez Sinclair was already free. Little did Damon know, as he celebrated his business success with the woman he thought was his future, that his wife had just set in motion a plan that would expose every cruel word, every manipulative action, every moment he'd made her feel worthless. The woman he'd underestimated was about to show him exactly what happened when you tried to break someone who was stronger than you ever imagined. Share this story if you believe that every woman deserves to know her worth, because what happens next will prove that the most dangerous person in any room is the one you've pushed too far. The divorce papers arrived at Damon's office on a Tuesday morning that started like any other. He was reviewing quarterly projections with Bianca when his assistant knocked hesitantly on his mahogany door. "Mr. Sinclair, there's a process server here. Says it's urgent legal documents." Damon barely looked up from his laptop. "Handle it, Sarah. Whatever it is can wait." "Sir, he says it's specifically for you. Personal service required." Bianca glanced up from her tablet, curiosity flickering across her perfectly made-up features. "Maybe it's about the Henderson acquisition." The process server entered with the kind of professional courtesy that masked life-changing moments. "Damon Sinclair. That's me. You've been served." The manila envelope felt heavier than it should have as Damon tore it open. His eyes scanned the first page once, twice, before the words penetrated his consciousness. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Irreconcilable differences. Request for full physical and legal custody. Spousal support. Division of community property. "What is it?" Bianca asked, but her voice seemed to come from underwater. Damon's hands shook as he flipped through page after page of legal documentation. Isabella Romano's letterhead. Recordings referenced as evidence. Witness statements. Financial disclosures demanded. "She's divorcing me," he whispered, the words foreign in his mouth. "What?" Bianca snatched the papers from his hands, her eyes widening as she read. "She can't do this. You said she was completely dependent on you." "She is," Damon said, but even as the words left his mouth, he remembered the woman who'd once built her own consulting empire. The woman who'd managed his entire social calendar while simultaneously coordinating million-dollar deals. The woman he'd systematically convinced was worthless. His phone buzzed. A text from Valentina. "The twins and I have moved out. All communication goes through my attorney now. Don't contact me directly." Damon's blood turned to ice. He called the house immediately. No answer. He tried Valentina's cell. Straight to voicemail. "This is Valentina Rodriguez. I'm no longer available at this number. For legal matters, contact Isabella Romano at Romano Family Law." She changed her name back, Bianca observed, reading over his shoulder. "And look at this custody petition. She's claiming emotional abuse." Damon's mind raced through months of conversations, trying to remember what he'd said, what she might have recorded. The realization hit him like a physical blow. She's been planning this. For how long? I don't know. But as Damon thought back, he began seeing signs he'd missed. Valentina's sudden interest in legal documentaries. Her questions about California custody law disguised as casual conversation. The way she'd started carrying her phone everywhere, even to the bathroom. His wife hadn't been falling apart. She'd been preparing for war. The first strategy meeting with his legal team was a disaster. Damon had hired the most expensive divorce attorney in Los Angeles, expecting to crush Valentina's case through superior resources. Mr. Sinclair, his attorney, Richard Blackwood, said grimly, "We have a problem. Your wife has extensive documentation of emotional abuse. Recordings, witness statements, financial evidence of controlling behavior." "What recordings?" "Hours of them, apparently. Conversations where you criticize her appearance, exclude her from social functions, make disparaging comments about her postpartum body." Damon's face flushed. Those were private conversations between husband and wife. California is a one-party consent state. She was legally entitled to record conversations she participated in. "What about custody?" "She can't take my children. Given the evidence of emotional abuse and your wife's role as primary caregiver, full custody is likely. California courts prioritize children's stability and emotional well-being." The room spun around Damon. Everything he'd built, everything he'd controlled, was slipping through his fingers like sand. "Fight it," he demanded. "Use every resource we have. Mr. Sinclair, I need to be clear about something. Fighting this aggressively could backfire spectacularly. If we challenge custody and lose, which is probable given the evidence, you could end up with supervised visitation only." But Damon wasn't listening. He was remembering the woman who'd once managed his empire with military precision, who'd charmed investors and coordinated complex deals while making it look effortless. He'd forgotten that intelligence and capability didn't disappear just because someone became a mother. He'd made the classic mistake of confusing temporary vulnerability with permanent weakness. Meanwhile, Valentina was settling into her new life with the same strategic thinking she'd once applied to Damon's business empire. The Manhattan beach house she'd rented was smaller than their Malibu mansion but filled with something their old home had lacked: peace. "Mama happy," Sophia babbled from her high chair, clapping her tiny hands as Valentina fed her breakfast. "Yes, baby girl. Mama is happy." For the first time in months, Valentina woke up without dreading the day ahead. No critical comments about her appearance. No comparisons to other women. No walking on eggshells around a man who'd made her feel like a failure for bringing his children into the world. Isabella called with updates that grew more encouraging each day. "Damon's attorney wants to negotiate," Isabella reported during one of their weekly meetings. "They're offering joint custody and reasonable spousal support." "What's the catch?" "They want you to sign a non-disclosure agreement. No public discussion of the marriage or divorce." Valentina considered this. "He's worried about his reputation." "Exactly. A tech billionaire who emotionally abused his wife after she nearly died giving birth to his children. That's not good for business." Counteroffer. "Full custody, generous spousal support, and no NDA. If he wants to protect his reputation, he should have thought about that before he decided to destroy mine." Isabella smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that." The custody hearing was scheduled for a Thursday morning in downtown Los Angeles. Valentina arrived early, wearing a navy suit that projected competence and strength. She'd lost some of the baby weight naturally through stress and better eating, but more importantly, she'd regained something Damon had tried to take from her: her sense of self-worth. Damon entered the courtroom with his legal team, looking every inch the powerful CEO. But when his eyes met Valentina's across the room, she saw something she'd never seen before: fear. Judge Patricia Morrison was known for her no-nonsense approach to family law and her particular intolerance for wealthy men who tried to use their resources to intimidate their wives. "I've reviewed the evidence submitted by both parties," Judge Morrison began. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I'd like to hear your statement regarding custody arrangements." Valentina stood, her voice clear and strong. "Your Honor, I'm not here to punish my husband or keep him from his children. I'm here to protect Sophia and Gabriel from the kind of conditional love that teaches them their worth depends on meeting impossible standards." She paused, looking directly at Damon. "My children watched their father criticize their mother for the changes pregnancy brought to her body. They heard him exclude her from family functions because she didn't meet his aesthetic requirements. They lived in a home where love came with conditions and criticism disguised as concern. "Your Honor," Damon's attorney interrupted, "my client disputes these characterizations." "I have recordings," Valentina continued calmly. "Hours of conversations where Mr. Sinclair made it clear that my value as his wife depended on maintaining a certain appearance, even while I was recovering from a difficult pregnancy and caring for premature twins." Judge Morrison's expression grew stern. "I'd like to hear a sample of these recordings." Isabella played a carefully selected clip. Damon's voice filled the courtroom, cold and dismissive as he compared Valentina unfavorably to other women, criticized her postpartum body, and suggested she was failing in her duties as his wife. The silence that followed was deafening. "Mr. Sinclair," Judge Morrison said, her voice sharp with disapproval, "do you have anything to say about these recordings?" Damon stood, his usual confidence shaken. "Your Honor, marriage is complicated. Sometimes people say things in private that sound worse out of context." "Context?" Judge Morrison's eyebrows rose. "The context is that your wife nearly died bringing your children into the world, and your response was to criticize her for the physical changes that resulted from that sacrifice. I was under a lot of stress. Building a business empire requires—" "Mr. Sinclair," the judge interrupted, "I've heard enough. Mrs. Rodriguez, I'm granting your petition for full physical and legal custody of Sophia and Gabriel Sinclair. Mr. Sinclair will have supervised visitation every other weekend, pending completion of anger management and co-parenting classes." The gavel's bang echoed through the courtroom like a gunshot. Damon's face went white as the reality hit him. He'd lost his children. He'd lost control. He'd lost everything that mattered because he'd forgotten that the woman he married was stronger than he'd ever given her credit for. But Valentina's revenge was just beginning. Within weeks of the divorce being finalized, Valentina did something that shocked everyone who knew her. She started a blog. Rising Phoenix, a mother's journey from ashes to empowerment, launched on a Tuesday morning with a post that went viral within hours. "6 months ago, my husband told me I was too disgusting to be seen in public because pregnancy had given me stretch marks," the post began. "Today, I want to talk about what happens when you realize that the person who's supposed to love you unconditionally has been keeping a scorecard of your worth." The response was overwhelming. Thousands of women shared their own stories of postpartum body shaming, of partners who'd made them feel worthless for the crime of creating life. Valentina's inbox flooded with messages of support, gratitude, and shared experiences. "You put words to what I've been feeling for years," one woman wrote. "My husband makes comments about my mom body constantly. I thought I was being too sensitive. Reading your story gave me the courage to leave," wrote another. "I deserve better than someone who makes me feel ashamed of my stretch marks." The blog's popularity exploded. Major publications reached out for interviews. Publishers inquired about book deals. Speaking engagements poured in from women's organizations, corporate events, and universities. Damon watched his ex-wife's rise with growing horror. Every article about Valentina's empowerment journey mentioned her tech billionaire ex-husband, who'd emotionally abused her after childbirth. His business associates began treating him differently. Investors asked uncomfortable questions. Board members suggested he might want to take a step back until the negative publicity died down. "This is destroying my reputation," he complained to Bianca during one of their increasingly tense meetings. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to treat your wife like garbage," Bianca snapped, her own patience wearing thin as the scandal affected her business relationships too. "You encouraged me. You said she'd let herself go, that I deserved better. I never told you to emotionally abuse her, Damon. I never told you to make her feel worthless for having your children." The truth was becoming clear to everyone, including Bianca. Damon hadn't been a victim of a demanding wife or an unfortunate marriage. He'd been a cruel man who'd systematically destroyed a woman's self-worth because it made him feel powerful. Meanwhile, Valentina's new life was flourishing in ways she'd never imagined. The blog led to a book deal with a major publisher. Rising Phoenix, Reclaiming Your Worth After Emotional Abuse, became a bestseller within weeks of publication. Speaking engagements took her across the country, sharing her story with audiences of women who saw themselves in her journey. The message was always the same: your worth isn't determined by someone else's opinion of your body, your choices, or your life. I want to be clear about something, Valentina told a packed auditorium in Chicago. This isn't about revenge against my ex-husband. This is about remembering that we teach people how to treat us, and sometimes we have to unlearn the lesson that love requires us to disappear. The applause was thunderous, but more importantly, Valentina could see the recognition in women's faces. The moment when they realized they weren't alone, weren't crazy, weren't asking for too much when they wanted to be loved without conditions. It was at one of these speaking events that Valentina met Gabriel Morrison, a single father and successful architect who'd brought his teenage daughter to hear her speak. My daughter insisted we come, Gabriel explained after the event, his warm smile reaching his eyes. She said your story reminded her that she deserves to be treated with respect in her relationships. Smart daughter, Valentina replied, immediately drawn to his genuine warmth and the way he looked at her like she was interesting, not just beautiful. Would you like to get coffee sometime? I promise not to comment on your appearance or compare you to other women. Valentina laughed, the sound genuine and free. That's a pretty low bar, but I appreciate the commitment. Their first date lasted 6 hours. Gabriel listened to her story without trying to fix her, supported her work without trying to control it, and made her laugh in ways she'd forgotten were possible. You're remarkable, he told her as they walked along Manhattan Beach at sunset, Sophia and Gabriel playing in the sand while his daughter Emma helped them build castles. I'm just someone who finally remembered her worth. That's what makes you remarkable. 6 months later, Valentina's multimedia empire included the blog, the best-selling book, a podcast that topped charts weekly, and a speaking tour booked solid for the next year. She'd bought a beautiful house overlooking the ocean, where Sophia and Gabriel thrived in an environment filled with laughter instead of criticism. Damon's supervised visits were awkward affairs where he struggled to connect with children who barely knew him. His business empire was struggling as investors distanced themselves from the negative publicity. Bianca had ended their relationship, tired of being associated with his reputation. He'd lost everything that mattered while Valentina had built something extraordinary from the ashes of their marriage. But the final confrontation was yet to come. It happened on a Saturday morning when Damon appeared at Valentina's front door, unannounced and desperate. She was in her garden with the twins, teaching them to plant flowers, when she heard the doorbell. Valentina, please. I need to talk to you. She opened the door to find a man she barely recognized. Gone was the arrogant confidence, the cold control. Damon looked broken, desperate, older than his years. You're not supposed to be here. All communication goes through our attorneys. Please. Just 5 minutes. Against her better judgment, Valentina stepped onto the porch, leaving the door open so she could hear the twins playing inside. What do you want, Damon? I want my family back. The words hung in the air between them. Valentina studied the man who'd once made her feel worthless, who'd criticized her for the crime of bringing his children into the world. You never had a family, she said quietly. You had possessions. A wife who made you look good, children who carried your name. But you never understood what family actually means. I made mistakes. I was under pressure, building the business, trying to provide for us. You made choices, Valentina corrected. You chose to make me feel ashamed of my body after I nearly died having your children. You chose to exclude me from our social life because I didn't meet your aesthetic standards. You chose to treat me like a liability instead of a partner. Bianca left me, Damon said, as if this explained everything. The business is struggling. Everyone treats me like a pariah. I've lost everything. And you think that's my fault? I think you've gotten your revenge. You've destroyed my reputation, taken my children, built your empire on the ruins of our marriage. Isn't that enough? Valentina looked at this man who'd once controlled every aspect of her life, who'd made her question her worth, who'd tried to convince her that love required her to disappear. Now he stood before her, broken and desperate, asking for mercy. Damon, she said, her voice gentle but firm, I didn't destroy your reputation. I told the truth about how you treated me. I didn't take your children. I protected them from learning that love comes with conditions. I didn't build my empire on the ruins of our marriage. I built it on the foundation of remembering my worth. Please, he whispered, tears streaming down his face. I'll do anything. Therapy, counseling, whatever you want. Just give me another chance. The chance for what? To go back to making me feel worthless. To teach our children that love requires perfection. To pretend that emotional abuse is just marriage being complicated. I've changed. Have you? Or are you just desperate because the consequences of your choices finally caught up with you? Damon had no answer for that. Here's what I learned, Valentina continued, her voice strong and clear. Mercy isn't giving someone another chance to hurt you. Mercy is refusing to let their cruelty turn you cruel. Mercy is building something beautiful from the ashes they left behind. What we had was beautiful until you decided it wasn't enough. Until you decided I wasn't enough. You can't unmake those choices, and I can't unknow what I learned about myself when I finally walked away. Damon stood there for a long moment, the weight of his losses settling around him like a shroud. I'm sorry, he whispered finally. I know you are. But sorry doesn't undo the damage. Sorry doesn't erase the recordings of you calling me disgusting. Sorry doesn't give back the months I spent believing I was worthless. So this is it. This is how it ends. This is how it begins, Valentina corrected. Your children need a father who's learned that love doesn't require perfection. They need to see you become the man you should have been all along. Not for me, not to win me back, but because they deserve better than the example you've been setting. As Damon walked away, shoulders slumped in defeat, Valentina felt something she hadn't expected, peace. Not the satisfaction of revenge, but the deep calm that comes from knowing you've chosen healing over hatred. Inside, Sophia and Gabriel ran to her with dirt-covered hands and bright smiles. Mama, look. Flowers. Beautiful flowers, she agreed, scooping them both into her arms. Just like you. That evening, as she tucked her children into bed in their beautiful new home, Valentina reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From the woman who'd stood broken in a marble bathroom, believing she was worthless, to the woman who'd built an empire on the foundation of knowing her worth. Tell us the story, Mama, Gabriel requested, as he did every night. Once upon a time, Valentina began, there was a woman who forgot how strong she was. But then she remembered that she was a phoenix, and phoenixes don't stay in the ashes. They rise. And then what happened? Sophia asked sleepily. Then she flew higher than she ever imagined possible, and she taught her children that they were phoenixes too. As her children drifted off to sleep, Valentina looked out at the ocean beyond their windows. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities, new speaking engagements, new chances to help other women remember their worth. The woman who'd once believed her value depended on someone else's approval had become someone who helped others find their own strength. The wife who'd been made to feel ashamed of her postpartum body had become an advocate for women's dignity and self-worth. Damon had tried to break her, but instead, he'd forged her into something stronger than she'd ever been before. And that, Valentina realized as she settled into her own bed in her own home, surrounded by the life she'd built from nothing, was the most beautiful revenge of all. The phoenix had risen, and she was magnificent. Subscribe for more stories of incredible transformations, because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is remember that you were never broken. You were just getting ready to fly. Remember. Your worth was never up for debate. You are enough, exactly as you are.